Hello again. We're back in the shop today, and the other day we made a poker similar to this one. This is not the same poker, but it's virtually the same. Nice simple little poker, a little ring handle, a decorative twist, and a hook that can push, pull, pick up some things, works for a pot hook. But I told you that if you have a coal fire and you're just starting out and you don't have tools to maintain your fire, that this makes a very good rake or poker for your coal fire. It's not perfect, but it's a pretty good one, and it can serve multiple purposes that way. The other tool you need for maintaining a coal fire, not so much in coke and not in charcoal, but you need a way to get water onto it. And I use a watering can. And some people have asked about my little dipper can here. So I thought we would make one similar to it. We won't make exactly this. This is actually a piece of copper drain pipe. Nobody uses copper drain pipe anymore. I was lucky to scrounge this up years ago. I wish I had more of it. And I soldered a bottom onto it. My solder joint isn't perfect because it was old nasty pipe, and I guess I didn't get it clean enough before I soldered it. So it leaks a little bit through there. I have some holes drilled here so I can dribble out the holes. I almost never use it. I usually just pour wherever I want it. And sometimes I use it as a cup just to cool parts in, except that since it leaks out the bottom, it doesn't work real well for that. Since copper pipe is hard to come by and stainless would be expensive, you might be able to find a stainless steel drinking glass or cup meant for kitchen use that you could use for a purpose like this, but maybe not. So we're going to make it really easy. We're going to use a tin can. Now this one is permanently riveted to the handle because the copper is not going to rot off. The tin can, on the other hand, is going to rust. It's going to go away. It's going to fall to pieces. It's temporary. Your handle doesn't have to be temporary. You can make it so that you can replace the tin can. So we're not going to rivet or screw or bolt or do anything like that. We're going to make this so it's kind of a spring fit clamp that just holds onto the can. You can pop the can out, put a new can in whenever you need to, and you just have to go eat more beans if you need another can. So we're going to start with 32 inches of 3/8 square bar. Now the ring handles on both of these tools, the poker I was showing you and the watering can, are remarkably similar handles. That can sometimes be confusing. I did a post a little while back about why these handles should be different. Might be worth taking a look at that. So I'm going to do a little different handle. I'm going to do something more like this on this one, just to be a little bit different. And I'm going to leave it open so we can hang this watering can on the side of the slack tub if we need to. Now I'm going to draw out about 7 inches of this to make that doubled back portion. I want to leave it 3/8 wide, but draw it out into a taper the rest of the distance with a little bit of a round taper at the very end. So I'm going to start there. So just make a little square taper at the end for the decorative curlicue, and then we're just going to draw this out. And again, we want about 7 inches. Leave it 3/8 wide. That anvil's a lot quieter since we remounted it. If you haven't seen that video, it's probably worth watching. But let's finish this first. And as always, I'm going to chamfer this. It makes for a much more comfortable tool handle. So that's kind of what you're aiming for. I'm going to continue to chamfer back into here because this will all be part of the handle. Then we'll come back and do the little curl. Yeah, it doesn't hurt if you chamfer too much of this because we're going to do most of it before we're done anyways. Yeah, we're going to get along with this quieter anvil much better. I should have done that a year ago. So now we just need to heat the curlicue part. Now I'm going to round that up a little bit. It's not going to be perfectly round, it's more of an oval. And just start over the edge of the anvil very gently. Try not to hit twice in the same place, or you might end up with a kink. We're just going to put a little curl in there that is purely ornamental, serves no other purpose. Now we're going to come back right about in here where our taper ends, and we're going to bend it away from the curl and make a comfortable handle. But we can't try it while it's hot. We'll have to wait till it cools. So right about there. Now I would like this to be just a little bit open here, so I'm going to stick the peen in and pry that open. Just about like that. That's really all that handle needs. It's a very simple handle. Now let's put a twist in it, just because we can. Twist isn't vital if you don't have a vise or a twisting wrench. You don't need to do this. I'm just going to put a nice little twist in there. Then I'm going to get it hot again. I think I'm going to do 2 twists. Now, the problem with a reverse twist is if we do this now, we're going to untwist our first twist. And even if you use a gas forge, this is someplace your watering can, especially with those little dribble holes in there. Let's see if I can show it this way. You can cool that off very nicely. Now my dirt floor gets muddy if I do that, but I can live with that. And I want to make sure I twist it the other direction in about the same amount. So I want to chamfer from the twist forward just a little bit here, just enough to be completely done with that section of the bar. Now we need to draw out a thin section here, much like we did here, except we want to make it parallel, which is the same way we did the poker the other day. So if you didn't watch this, it might be worth watching it, and it'll be a very similar technique, but the end result will be different. I promise you that will all make sense before we're all done. Now our tin can is exactly 3 inches outside diameter. So we need that bar to wrap 3 inches around here. Plus we need some extra because we're going to wrap and it's going to be proud, so it's kind of springy. So the rule is the diameter times pi, which is 3.14. So if you guess 9 inches, 3 times 3, that'd be close. But the math actually comes out to 9.42, so 9.5 inches. So if we go 10 inches, I think we'll have enough to wrap this, have a little tail, and I'll explain why we need that little tail later. So the first thing we need to do is draw out 10 inches of bar. Now my anvil is 5 inches wide, and to get a nice even taper, or a nice even draw out of this, about half the width of what we're starting with, we want to double it more or less. So if I start at 5 inches, I should end up with the right amount. So I'll set that off at the edge of the anvil and establish a little shoulder. Now I'm working this so that this ring will be at 90 degrees to the handle, so that the handle's there and the can is here. And I'm also going to draw this out over the face of the anvil, even though it would be faster over the horn. I know not everybody has an anvil with a horn. I'm using the peen of the hammer to get better effect here. I'm going to work from both sides. You can see how my hand is right over the bar where it might be hot. That's why my other favorite hammer has a diagonal peen. It can be perpendicular to the bar, and now my hand is swung over to the side. And it's a much more natural way to work. But you have to make diagonal peen hammers yourself. Nobody sells them that I know of. Go to the flat of the hammer, or the face, and work out the peen marks from time to time. If this widens out a little bit, it's not really a big deal. But it doesn't need to be any wider. Now this is getting about the thickness I want. It looks like it's about 3/16, but I'm not as long as I would like to be. So my initial assumption isn't proving true. Of course, the fact that it's wider also means that's where some of my material went instead of going to stretch. So I'm going to thin that out a little bit, or bring it back to 3/8, I mean. And if you don't get it long enough, it's not going to wrap all the way around your can, and it's not going to hold the can. So if you need to, take another bite and add a little bit more material to it. We are right now at 8 3/4, so I'd like to get another 1.25 inches out of that. We'll see if I can, or if I take another bite. So when you're doing something like this, start with the material amount based on your best information, either a formula you think is correct, your best guess, whatever information you're using to decide that's how much material. Forge it out, check your measurements. If something's not right, figure out why, correct it, take more material, start over, do it again, whatever it takes. And once you get it right and you figure out why it's right, write it down in your notebook. 9.5, we're awfully close. And we are not quite to 3/16, so we're still a little bit thick through there. And we're a 1/4 inch here, so we can probably get most of what we need right through there. Still a little wide through here. So you can work with this and you can fiddle with it and you can get it right. But if it ends up not quite what you think you needed, for whatever reason, you can take another bite there. It's not going to hurt you if this handle's a little bit shorter. This is just a guess anyways. We're right at 10 inches. I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to come back and pick up the last little bit of our chamfering there. Now, just like we did on this poker again, we're going to bend this over 90 degrees and upset back a little bit, just for looks. And that's where our can will sit. Yeah, you're not really trying to do a perfect upset square corner here. You're just trying to get something the can's going to fit tightly in. So this is where our can will sit up into, right here. Now we need to circle that around. Now, in an ideal world, you've got something like this that is just a hair smaller than the can, and you can hook that in there. This needs an adapter for the hardy hole, and you can shape that. We can try to shape it over the edge of the anvil or over the horn, and you might be able to bend it around the can, but you might also crush your can. So have an extra can or two around if you're going to try that. Something else you could do is just get a piece of pipe and hold it with something like channel locks, or if you've got a pair of tongs you've scrounged somewhere, you might be able to bend it around that piece of pipe. Not going to be the easiest thing in the world, but it might be doable. Starting to look like our poker on steroids. At the end, I'm actually going to want taken out the other way a little bit. So we're getting very close to having something that'll fit. It's a little bit tight right now. That almost fits. So I'm going to go ahead and try and forge that right around the can and see if we crush it. I have spare cans if we can't make it work. Now, I'm trying to do this with as simple tools as possible. I would use that little jig if it was just me. That looks like that's going to work. Makes the plastic liner in the can sure stink. I don't quite have the loop centered, so I want to center that up just a little bit here. And if you've got the channel locks, this is probably a good place you can use them to your advantage. Scrolling pliers would be better. A pair of tongs would be better. But let's try to keep it with absolute minimal tools. So you can see I've scorched the plastic liner off of that can. That means this can's going to rust out much faster. But if you have several cans, you should be able to get away with this. It also really stinks. Now that can's going to be hot. Don't burn yourself on it. Okay, now we know that can just fell out of there, so I want to tighten that up just a little bit more. I want it slightly tighter than the can is round. So that's pretty much the entire project. I'd probably put a little bit of wax on that if it was just me. So there's our finished handle with a ring on it that we intentionally made just a little bit too small. Our can doesn't fit. Why in the world would we do that? So if we pry open on this little tail we left, And I'm going to use a piece of bar stock and pry gently here, because if you go too far, you'll end up putting a kink in this, and then it's never going to fit. But then you should be able to just slip it over your can. The lip of the can will keep it from sliding off if it wants to settle. And that's perfectly suitable for dipping water out of. You can use this for cooling things over at the forge, cooling your twists at the vise. You can punch the 4 little holes in the side like I have in my can, or down here. You can punch holes in the bottom. If you're just using it for the coal forge, you do that, and you do this. You can have 3 or 4 different cans all set up a little differently if you want to. But that's a quick, simple way to make a little watering can. The can's going to rust out. You just bring that open just a tiny bit so you don't bend it. Pop the can out, put a new can in. You just have to keep buying the same brand of refried beans all the time. Oh, and the reason I left the handle open is so we can hang it on the outside of the slack tub when we're not using it, so it doesn't sit in the tub and rust, or worse, in the winter it freezes in place, and when you try to pull this out, you end up ripping the can off of it. Just save these cans. They come in handy for storing punches and chisels in around the shop, so you should always have a little stash of them around if you do that, and you can just get a new can anytime you need it. We've made the handles different. That way when you're at the fire and you just see the handle, you know what tool you're grabbing. And again, we talked about that in an earlier video. It'd be worth going and checking that one out. And it's a short one. It's about 5 minutes. Now another option, if you can find stainless steel or aluminum. This is actually an antique, and so I haven't turned it into a blacksmith shop tool, but I actually found 6 of these, I think, a few years ago. They're fairly heavy gauge aluminum. They're tougher than anything you get today. They're probably from the 50s. And that would make a great little water dipper as well, but I'm reluctant to drill holes or mount it to a handle or do whatever, because they are old and vintage and they might be collectible for somebody, even though I'm probably never going to drink out of them again. I do remember my grandmother having these though. But anyways, that's it for today. If you've got a coal fire, this is a useful tool. Even if you're working out of a gas forge like I was today, I use this to cool the twist down. It's a very practical tool to have in your shop for a lot of different reasons. It's almost necessary for coal, not so much in coke, not so much in charcoal. So I hope you enjoyed it and give it a thumbs up. Love it if you'd hit that subscribe button down there. Remember to ring the bell if you want to know when the new videos come out. That'll give you some notices. If you'd like to support the channel financially, there is a link to my PayPal account down in the description. There's no obligation. The content is free and will remain so. That's just a donation. In the meantime, feel free to watch some other videos, share the videos with your friends, get out to the shop, make something, stay safe, do wear your safety glasses, and we'll see you for the next one.